Dave, tell me a little bit, let's talk a little bit about what makes big bluegill lakes. What kind of waters are you looking for?
Well, here in northern Minnesota, I think the lakes with the best potential to grow big bluegill are moderately sized lakes that are somewhat to moderately shallow. Our real deep lakes tend to cool or tend to warm up really slowly, and it seems like they don't produce the real trophy bluegill that some of our shallower lakes do. And then the other thing to keep in mind in northern Minnesota is that our fish grow really slow here. So there has to be a limited amount of harvest that's occurring. In some of these cases, we're seeing it take 8 years or more to grow an 8-inch bluegill. Obviously, those fish have to be surviving a long time to produce large ones.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same sort of things in southern Minnesota, but you definitely know that across the state, north to south, we've got a lot of different style of lakes, a lot of prairie, panfish type of lakes, which are good for bluegill, like the name would suggest. They're bass panfish lakes. They're shallow, they're very productive, and the growth is usually pretty strong. The places where the bluegill don't really do as well probably has as much to do with vegetation, because when you're talking about prairie lakes, you're seeing lakes that are really dominated by planktonic green algae. They're really turbid. Those places bluegills can struggle a little bit, but when we've got more clearer water, more rooted aquatic plants, more of a mesotrophic, skewing more towards mesotrophic than eutrophic, those are the places the bluegill really do the best. But we do really take advantage of that fast growth in southern Minnesota to replace bluegills that get harvested out. You and I have talked a little bit and can share with folks that some of those characteristics or what some of those basins may have in common, or in some cases maybe how they're a little bit different.
Right.
I mean, we did talk a little bit about growth, which isn't always the end-all be-all, but it certainly helps. Fast growth gets those fish to bigger sizes in a hurry and makes replacement a little bit faster. But there again, you know, you've talked about, you've got some lakes where maybe the growth isn't as fast, but you know that regulation can help.
Right, and that's what we're seeing. You know, if our fish are getting harvested when they're only 5 or 6 years old, it's going to be really hard to grow a 10-inch bluegill. If we can reduce that harvest so that we're seeing more fish live 8, 9, in some cases up to even 12 years old in a lake like this one, that's when we can see some fish that are pushing a pound or bigger. So a lake can only produce so many pounds of sunfish, and it's all about how do you want that weight divvied up. Do you want a heck of a lot of small fish, or do you want a few big fish? Either way, the lake's producing the same number of pounds. And that's what leads to these lakes with stunted bluegill populations. If we go and we remove those large sunfish, the population wants to replace that weight as quickly as it can. And the easiest way for a fish population to do that is to produce a whole lot of small fish that following year. Now you do that year in and year out over enough generations, and before too long you've got a whole bunch of these small fish that are competing with each other, and their growth rate slows down, and before long you can't grow a large sunfish anymore. The other interesting thing that happens in those kind of populations is somehow the fish get a sense that they're not going to live very long, so they decide to spawn at a smaller size. And when they spawn at a smaller size, the energy that was going into growth is now diverted into reproduction, and their growth rate will flatline. So really the key to growing these large bluegill is to have low to moderate densities of fish that mature when they're a little bit older, maybe not until 4 or 5 years old.